books about his observations, his travels, morphology, plant sociology, ecology. He has written it all. He describes as the first author ever the importance of nature, and he designs the word ecology, and he combines his views, his observation, landscape development, agriculture, and climate change. 1802, think of it. So the man travels and observes, and out of his observations an enormous bookshelf emerges with wisdom and whatever. Same with Goethe. What's Goethe? He's a writer, an author, a scientist, but especially he is like Voltaire in France, an observator. He observes and he interprets, and he spreads his views and his brilliance and his spirit through his mindset, which is not a specialism, but it's a broad mind. The Silk Route, the North Sea, Michael Pye, an English historian, has written a book about the early developments around the North Sea from the year 0 till 1500, with the Vikings and the Frisians and the Saxons as the major drivers around the North Sea. How the North Sea created the early roots of European civilization through hundreds of years of barbarian cruelty and lack of civilization, but at the same time a fight for progress and a fight for fine-tuning and a civilized society which finally emerges. Those are the books that are important for anyone who wants to change the world and anyone who wants to become a wise man. And that's what I would like to be, a wise man.
So what is the relationship between your studies and what you're doing now?
Possibly zero.
Okay, yeah, that's...
But well, let me put it this way. I have studied science communication, but to really study it or to practice it is a great difference. You have to have talent to do so, and the talent is something that comes with your DNA. I'm an artist. I'm a painter, a writer, a musician, a scientist. That's something I wanted since I, at the age of 14, read a book by Hermann Hesse, Narziss und Goldmund. And that, in your age, I would strongly advise to read, because that's about the desire to become a homo universalis. You know what it is?
Yeah.
Homo universalis. To become a man of art, science, theology, and also the Homo universalis has the ability to combine the early arts and crafts of the Greeks, which is rhetorics, a very important part, poetry, designing, drawing, painting, so the hands that knows how to express itself, how to express the mind, mathematics, music. That's what the Homo universalis has to do, to develop those arts and those crafts, and that's what I wanted since I was 14. So there is a combination between my early studies, books, and my early work, and the study in science communication. Later I became a tutor and a professor in science communication, and I've taught my students how to think, how to be organized in your brain, how to concentrate on the logic of what you want to tell. That's the skill. Isn't she sweet?
Yeah.
She's beautiful. So cute. All right.
So was it then also at the age of 14 that you started thinking sustainable or changing?
The word sustainability didn't exist until 1987. It originated in the Brundtland report. You know what that is?
No?
Okay, we, as the Club of Rome, invented the word and the principles of limits to growth, die Grenzen des Wachstums. You know about that. In 1987, the UN demanded a report on the follow-up of limits to growth. The chairman of that committee was Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was Prime Minister of Norway. And the Secretary General was Jim McNeill, a minister from Ottawa in Canada. And Jim McNeill, as the Secretary General, of course, he was the main author of the committee, the UN Commission on Sustainable Development, and he invented the word sustainability because they wanted a replacement for limits to growth. Limits to growth is more or less a threshold, a door you close to the future. Limits to growth, you can't grow on forever, which is true, but let's convert that word, let's change it into a principle that has more hope in it. That's why we said, okay, the limits to growth will be replaced by sustainable development. There can be development, but it has to be sustainable given certain requirements and demands. That's so only since that day we have the word sustainability. So you can never ask an old professor like me how 50 years ago I embraced the word sustainability. It wasn't there.
But when did you then change to this type of thinking?
Never. I've been in this type of thinking from day one. In the late 1970, I traveled in the US for Dutch media, for television and newspapers, and I encountered the group around the Limits to Growth, the Club of Rome people, in Boston, in November 1970. They showed me their draft report on the Limits to Growth, and I took it home. And for 9 months I prepared for its launch in late 71, which was more or less a Machiavelli trick. And it worked. I launched it the early weeks of October 1971, and within days it was world news. Within days. It exploded in the face of the elite in those days, governments and science. It exploded in their face. My God, after the war we wanted to reconstruct society, and that's in the middle of it we suddenly are confronted with the idea that this cannot go on forever, because there's something like a limit in exploiting the earth and the planet. That couldn't be, because the economists kept telling us that growth can go on forever, for the next million years. You can scrape the planet until there's nothing left, but at the same time you call it progress and growth, which is total nonsense. And it was not in the mindset, but I was not only fascinated, but it was deep in my veins the understanding that this wasn't true. And so from day one I understood within seconds, when the team showed me what they were doing, within seconds I understood what it was all about. I understood the system, understood the mathematics, and I understood all the consequences. And I told them, this is dynamite. This is going to change the world. They couldn't believe me. We were all very young. We were all in our late 20s. And I was right. It was dynamite. We sold 13 million copies of the report in 52 languages. And over 800,000 articles have been written about it. Think of it. Enormous.
How would you define the word sustainability?
Sustainable development is about the development of our environment for the benefit of man, so that everybody has to eat, everybody can live, breathe, educate, have children, have coffee in the morning, a meal in the evening, has a meaningful life, without exploiting the limits of what the planet can provide.
Mm-hmm.
That's sustainable development. So it's all about the range of what the planet has available. That's sustainable development. It's very simple.
Yeah. What is your vision then for sustainability in the future?
Can you sustain a pessimistic message? The future is very grim,
Mm-hmm.
but we are living in a watershed. So from the one side on the watershed there is a flood coming up, sea level rise, climate change, exhaustion, depletion, destruction, and the other hand is innovation. And in the middle is the watershed, the Wasserscheide.
Mm-hmm.
But the developments are such that the flood of sea level rise and climate change is dominant.
Mm-hmm.
So we're heading for the real limits, and possibly we have reached them for long already.
Mm-hmm.
And the